So this question is a diagram question. Really, any question that provides some visual input, I'm going to call a diagram question. More specifically, the type of diagram we have here is a graph. All right, so I'm going to start reading, but everything that I read, I'm going to check in on the graph and make sure that I'm understanding it through the graph, basically through the diagram. So the question says a research institute conducted phone and mail surveys. All right, so I do see that my x-axis is mail surveys and my y-axis is number of phone surveys. Okay, so next sentence says the total cost of conducting these surveys was $5,000. Okay, so then I know that when we add up the number of phone surveys and its cost, right, and the number of phone surveys and their cost, that it should all add up to $5,000, right? So I'll just make a note of that and maybe even write it down, 5,000. The line shown models the possible combinations of phone and mail surveys that the Institute could have conducted. Okay, so that's telling us we don't know how many of each they will conduct, but this graph kind of shows you the different possibilities, right? So I'm paying attention to the y-intercept here because that tells me that I need 125 phone surveys to go along with my 0 mail surveys in order to get to that $5,000 cost. And my x-intercept here would tell me that I need 200 mail surveys, right? 200 is on the x-axis. So 200 mail surveys to correspond with 0 phone surveys to get up to that same $5,000. And there's a lot of different options in between those two poles. All right, so the last part here says, according to the model, what was the cost for each phone survey conducted? Okay, well, if all I care about is phone surveys, that means, let me just erase this so we can see it clearly. If the only thing this question is asking me about is phone surveys, that means I must focus my attention here on the y-intercept, right? Because that point right there is the only point on this graph that does not include a single mail survey. And what that point tells me is that if the Research Institute only conducted phone surveys, they would conduct 125 of them, that number of phone surveys would have a cost associated with it, which I'll just call C, that we multiply by that 125, and that when we did that, we should get $5,000, right? The total cost from running those 125 phone surveys should be $5,000. So all I have left to do now is to solve for the cost, solve for C. So in this sense, C is equal to 40. Why? Because 125 times 40 is 5,000. Of course, this is not the calculator section, so by all means, write it out by hand. You'd see that 125 goes into 500 4 times, and we can just add a 0 to make 125 go into 5,000 40 times. So the cost is equal to 40, and therefore the answer is choice C.